Chapter 1: The Boy Who Lived. The story opens with the Dursleys, a wealthy family in Surrey, England, who are preoccupied with maintaining their status and image. Mr. Dursley, on his way to work, notices a cat reading a map, people dressed in brightly colored cloaks, and hears about strange occurrences in town involving the Potters, his wife's eccentric sister's family. However, he dismisses it all as mere coincidence and does not mention it to his wife. Meanwhile, the news is full of unusual reports of shooting stars and owls flying during the day, hinting at the magical world beyond the Dursleys' comprehension. That night, Albus Dumbledore, the head of Hogwarts, and Professor McGonagall, a fellow teacher, appear on the Dursleys' street, discussing the disappearance of Voldemort, a powerful and evil wizard. They reveal that Voldemort killed the Potter parents the previous night but was unable to kill their son, Harry, and that the baby has been left on the Dursleys' doorstep. Despite McGonagall's protests that the Dursleys are not fit to care for a magical child, Dumbledore insists that there is no one else to take care of Harry and that he will be told of his fate when he is older. A giant named Hagrid, who is carrying the baby Harry, arrives on a motorcycle and places the baby on the doorstep, accompanied by a letter from Dumbledore. The opening chapters of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone set the stage for the magical world that Harry Potter will soon enter. The story introduces the Dursleys, who are depicted as uptight and preoccupied with social status, as well as the mysterious occurrences that hint at the existence of magic. It also establishes the characters of Dumbledore, McGonagall, and Hagrid, who play important roles throughout the series. The scene of Hagrid placing the baby Harry on the doorstep, accompanied by Dumbledore's letter, sets the story in motion and provides the impetus for Harry's journey into the world of magic. Chapter 2: The Vanishing Glass. In this chapter, 10 years have passed since baby Harry Potter was left on the doorstep of his uncle and aunt, the Dursleys. Harry, now almost 11 years old, lives miserably under the stairs in the Dursleys' house, constantly tormented by his spoiled cousin, Dudley. One day, on Dudley's birthday trip to the zoo, Harry discovers that he can talk to a boa constrictor, but the snake escapes and Harry is punished for the incident by his cruel family. The author's use of names in the Harry Potter series is deliberate and gives insight into the personalities of the characters. Harry's name is plain and simple, suggesting an unremarkable existence, whereas the Dursleys' name implies an old-fashioned, class-conscious life. This technique, which is similar to the caricature style used by Charles Dickens in his novels, gives each character a larger-than-life, almost mythical feel. Overall, this section highlights the continued mistreatment of Harry by the Dursleys and introduces the idea that Harry may be something more than ordinary, as evidenced by his ability to communicate with the snake. The naming convention used in the series is also introduced, which provides insight into the social rank and personalities of the characters. Chapter 3: The Letters from No One. Harry, punished for the incident with the boa constrictor, is forced to stay locked up in his cupboard until summer. Once he's finally allowed out, he spends most of his time outside the house to avoid being tormented by Dudley's friends. He's excited about starting a new school in the fall and being away from Dudley for the first time in his life. However, one day Uncle Vernon instructs Harry to fetch the mail and he comes across a letter addressed to him with a coat of arms in the cupboard under the stairs. After seeing it, Uncle Vernon and his wife are both shocked, and force Dudley and Harry to leave the kitchen so they can discuss what to do. The next day, Uncle Vernon tells Harry to move into Dudley's room, which was previously used to store his toys. The next day, another letter arrives for Harry, this time addressed to him in the smallest bedroom. Uncle Vernon becomes even more alarmed, and keeps the letter from Harry. The following morning, Harry wakes up early to try and get the mail before anyone else, but Uncle Vernon has slept by the mail slot and takes the letters from Harry. Despite Uncle Vernon nailing the mail slot shut, 12 letters still arrive the next day. Letters continue to flood into the house in impossible ways, but Uncle Vernon still prevents Harry from reading any of them. Eventually, Uncle Vernon decides to take the family away from the house, but even at the hotel they stay at, 100 letters are delivered for Harry. Furious, Uncle Vernon takes the family to an island with only one shack on it, bolting the door to keep Harry isolated. On Harry's birthday, at midnight, there is a loud thump at the door. Chapter 4, The Keeper of the Keys. In this chapter, Harry's birthday is marked by the arrival of a giant named Hagrid, who reveals to him that he is a wizard and presents him with a letter of acceptance to the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Uncle Vernon protests against Harry's attendance, but Hagrid explains that the Dursleys have been lying to Harry about his parents' death and that they were actually killed by the evil wizard Voldemort. Harry begins to see himself as a wizard and not just an ordinary boy, and his departure from the Dursleys at the end of the chapter symbolizes his maturation and his ability to make his own way in life. The conflict between Mr. Dursley and Hagrid highlights the contrast between the worlds of wizards and muggles, as represented by their respective authority figures. Mr. Dursley clings desperately to his dominant role in the family, while Harry is drawn to Hagrid's confidence and power. Hagrid effortlessly overpowers Mr. Dursley, demonstrating the superiority of the wizarding world. The Dursleys' denial of wizardry is intriguing because it suggests that people may repress difficult or embarrassing facts in order to maintain a sense of normalcy. Overall, Chapter 4 marks a turning point for Harry as he begins to embrace his identity as a wizard and assert his independence from the Dursleys. The conflict between Mr. Dursley and Hagrid illustrates the clash between the worlds of wizards and muggles, and suggests that people may deny difficult truths in order to maintain a sense of normalcy. Chapter 5, Diagon Alley. In this chapter, Harry wakes up after the previous night's events and learns that they were not a dream. He and Hagrid head to London to buy Harry's school supplies, including a wand, uniform, and books. Hagrid takes Harry to Gringotts, the wizard's bank, where they collect Harry's inheritance left by his parents. Hagrid also retrieves a mysterious package from Vault 713, warning Harry not to ask about it. At the Leaky Cauldron, Harry is recognized by patrons and is revered by some for surviving an attack by the evil wizard Voldemort. Harry encounters a snobbish boy at the uniform store who talks about grand old wizard families, making Harry worry about his suitability as a wizard. Hagrid reassures Harry and reminds him that he will learn everything he needs to know at Hogwarts. Harry finally selects a wand at Mr. Ollivander's wand shop, and Ollivander tells him that the only other wand with feathers from the same phoenix as Harry's wand belonged to Voldemort, who used it to give Harry his famous scar. This reinforces the idea that Harry has a connection to Voldemort and that his destiny is intertwined with the evil wizards. Overall, this chapter is important in showing Harry's first experiences in the wizarding world and setting up some of the central conflicts of the story. In addition, the chapter provides important exposition on the wizarding world, including the wizarding monetary system, the role of Gringotts, and the selection of wands. The contrast between the snobbish boy and Hagrid also highlights the different attitudes toward wizardry that exist in the world. Finally, the mysterious package that Hagrid retrieves from Vault 713 adds an element of intrigue to the story, leaving the reader wondering what secrets Hagrid is keeping. Chapter 6, The Journey from Platform 9 3/4. In the last month of the summer, Harry spends an unpleasant time with the Dursleys. The day before he leaves, Harry convinces Uncle Vernon to take him to the train station. When Harry reaches the station, he is confused and worried about how to find the train to Hogwarts, which departs from platform 9 3/4. With some help from a wizard family, Harry discovers that he must pass through a barrier between tracks 9 and 10 to find the train. He boards the train and meets Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger, who will be his companions at Hogwarts. On the train, Harry befriends Ron Weasley and meets the mischievous Weasley twins. Ron educates Harry about wizarding life, including the wizarding game of Quidditch and famous witches and wizards cards. Harry also encounters Draco Malfoy, a snobbish boy who he met earlier at the uniform store. Along with the new students, Harry sails to Hogwarts on boats. The students are greeted by a view of the castle lit up by torches, and they proceed to the castle's Great Hall, where they are sorted into one of the 4 houses of Hogwarts: Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, or Slytherin. In the Great Hall, the Sorting Hat places Harry, Ron, and Hermione in Gryffindor House. At Hogwarts, the trio becomes fast friends and settles into life at the school. Harry also learns more about his parents and the events that led to their deaths from his new defense against the dark arts teacher, Professor Quirrell. As Harry begins his education at Hogwarts, he discovers that there is much to learn about the wizarding world, and that he will face many challenges in the years to come. Chapter 7: The Sorting Hat. In this chapter, Harry finally leaves the Dursleys and makes his way to the Hogwarts Express. On the train, he meets Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger, who will become his closest friends at Hogwarts. He also learns about the wizarding world, including Quidditch, the famous witches and wizards cards, and the houses at Hogwarts. Upon arrival at the school, they are greeted by Professor McGonagall and are informed that they will soon be sorted into their houses. Harry is anxious about being placed in Slytherin, but is ultimately placed in Gryffindor with Ron and Hermione. The students are then led to the Great Hall for a feast, during which nearly headless Nick introduces himself to the first years and the discussion turns to the students' upbringings. Harry also notices Professor Snape, who he immediately dislikes. After the feast, Albus Dumbledore gives a welcome speech and warns the students to stay away from the Forbidden Forest and the third-floor corridor on the right side of the school. Overall, this chapter establishes the setting and introduces the major players in the story. It also lays the groundwork for the competition between the 4 houses, the dangers that lie within the school, and the overarching conflict with Voldemort. Chapter 8: The Potions Master. In this chapter, Harry begins to settle into life at Hogwarts and is amazed by the various classes he attends. Although he finds most of the classes intriguing, he struggles to keep up with the rest of the students in Transfiguration. During breakfast one day, Harry receives an invitation from Hagrid for tea. While in his potions class, Harry realizes that Professor Snape has a strong dislike for him. Harry and Ron visit Hagrid for tea and are welcomed by his large and intimidating dog, Fang. Hagrid reassures Harry that Snape has no reason to hate him, but Harry remains suspicious of the professor's behavior towards him. Harry's attention is drawn to an article in the Wizard newspaper about a break-in at Gringotts Bank on the same day he and Hagrid visited the bank. Harry remembers that Hagrid had taken a package from Vault 713 during their visit, which now raises questions in his mind. Harry's curiosity continues to grow, and he wants to find out more about the break-in at Gringotts and what Hagrid had taken from Vault 713. Chapter 9: The Midnight Duel. In this chapter, Harry starts to feel apprehensive about his flying lessons with the Slytherins due to his ongoing feud with Draco Malfoy. During the class, Neville breaks his wrist and is taken to the hospital. Malfoy takes advantage of the situation by picking up a magic ball belonging to Neville and flying around with it. Harry chases after Malfoy and makes a spectacular catch before Professor McGonagall arrives. She introduces Harry to Oliver Wood, the captain of the Gryffindor Quidditch team, who recruits him to join. After dinner, Harry tells Ron about joining the Quidditch team but is interrupted by Malfoy, who challenges him to a wizard's duel. Hermione tries to stop them, but Harry and Ron sneak out later that night with Neville and Hermione tagging along. They go to the trophy room to wait for Malfoy, but they hear the school caretaker, Argus Filch, and his cat, Mrs. Norris, enter the room. The children hide, but not before noticing a trapdoor on the floor. Fearing discovery, they run away and accidentally end up in the forbidden third-floor area, where they encounter a 3-headed dog guarding a trapdoor. The children make it back to their dorm safely, but they are terrified by their encounter with the 3-headed dog. Hermione chastises Harry for breaking school rules and participating in the wizard's duel, but also stirs his curiosity by pointing out the trapdoor they saw in the trophy room. Harry becomes more intrigued and wonders what the dog is guarding behind the trapdoor. Chapter 10, Halloween. In this chapter, Harry is summoned to Quidditch practice by Professor McGonagall after receiving a first-class broomstick. Malfoy tries to report Harry for having a broomstick as first-year students are not allowed them, but Professor Flitwick instead admires Harry's talent. Later, Harry meets with Oliver Wood to learn the basics of Quidditch. On Halloween, Harry, Ron, and Hermione attend the feast and hear about a 12-foot troll that has entered the building. The trio discovers Hermione does not know about the troll and heads off to warn her. They end up locking the troll in the girls' bathroom with Hermione. Working together, they manage to knock out the troll, and Hermione becomes their friend. The next day, Harry and Ron realize that Hermione had lied to protect him from being punished. She tells them that she has received loads of homework as punishment for her behavior, but they are grateful for her friendship. Harry and Ron's admiration for Hermione grows as they learn that she is a very talented witch. Meanwhile, Harry begins Quidditch practice and starts learning how to fly on his broomstick. He realizes that Quidditch is a complicated sport and a lot more challenging than he thought. As the weeks go by, the students continue to learn new spells and potions in their classes, and Harry becomes more and more excited about Quidditch. Harry, Ron, and Hermione become inseparable friends, and Harry learns more about the wizarding world. The trio also discovers that there is a trapdoor in the forbidden area of the third floor, guarded by the three-headed dog that they had seen before. Harry becomes increasingly curious about what could be hidden behind the door. Chapter 11, Quidditch. In this chapter, Harry gets ready for his first Quidditch match against Slytherin. While studying for the game, Harry borrows a book from Hermione titled, Quidditch Through the Ages. However, Professor Snape confiscates the book and Harry suspects him even more when he overhears him talking about the three-headed dog. During the match, Harry's broom starts behaving strangely, and Hermione notices Snape muttering and staring at Harry. Hermione sets Snape's robes on fire, breaking the spell on Harry's broom, and he wins the game. After the match, Hagrid, Hermione, and Ron take Harry to Hagrid's hut. Ron tells Harry that Snape cursed his broomstick, but Hagrid does not believe it. Harry then tells Hagrid about Snape's injured leg and that he was talking about the three-headed dog. Hagrid unintentionally reveals that the dog is his and guarding something for Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel. The chapter reveals more about Snape's suspicious behavior and Harry's growing distrust of him. The introduction of Fluffy and the mystery surrounding what he's guarding adds a new layer of intrigue to the story. The chapter also showcases Hermione's quick thinking and bravery, as she sets Snape's robes on fire to save Harry during the Quidditch match. Chapter 12, The Mirror of Erised. In this chapter, Christmas is approaching and Malfoy taunts Harry about having to stay at Hogwarts while everyone else goes home to their families. Hermione tears Ron and Harry away from Hagrid to search for more information about Nicholas Flamel in the library. The librarian catches Harry looking in the restricted books section and kicks him out. On Christmas Day, Harry receives fewer presents than Ron, but is gifted an invisibility cloak accompanied by an anonymous note telling him that it belonged to his father. That night, Harry puts on the invisibility cloak and goes to the restricted books section of the library, but a screaming book makes him leave. He hides in an old classroom marked with the inscription, Erised, and discovers a mirror that shows the deepest desires of whoever looks into it. Harry sees his deceased parents in the mirror and returns twice more to show Ron. On the third night, he finds Dumbledore in the mirror room, who explains its purpose. Dumbledore tells Harry that the mirror is called the Mirror of Erised and shows the viewer the deepest desires, and that Harry's father had given him the invisibility cloak. Dumbledore warns Harry that the mirror can be dangerous and advises him not to become too absorbed in it. Harry is reassured by Dumbledore's kindness and leaves the room, returning the cloak to its hiding place. Chapter 13, Nicholas Flamel. In this chapter, Harry receives a warning from Dumbledore to stay away from the Mirror of Erised. He and his friends continue to search for Nicholas Flamel, the maker of the Sorcerer's Stone. While Harry's time is mostly occupied by Quidditch practice, he worries about the next match because Snape will be the referee. During a conversation with his friends, Neville is hexed by Malfoy, and Harry encourages him to stand up for himself. Neville gives Harry a famous wizard card, which reminds Harry that Flamel's name is on the back of Dumbledore's card. They learn that Flamel was the only wizard to make the Sorcerer's Stone, which produces an elixir of everlasting life. Harry is nervous about the upcoming Quidditch match, but his fears are eased when he learns that Dumbledore will be attending the game. Harry catches the golden snitch in the first 5 minutes, and Gryffindor wins the match, securing first place in the House Championship. After the game, Harry follows Snape and hears him talking about the Sorcerer's Stone to Professor Quirrell in the forest. The chapter ends with Harry and his friends realizing that the Sorcerer's Stone must be the object that the three-headed dog is guarding on the 3rd floor. They decide to protect it themselves because they fear that Snape, who they believe is after the stone, might harm it. Chapter 14, Norbert the Norwegian Ridgeback. In this chapter, Hermione, Harry, and Ron are busy studying and completing homework as the end-of-year exams approach. Hermione is especially anxious, but Hagrid provides a welcome distraction when he tells them about the Sorcerer's Stone. Hagrid explains that he doesn't know what else is guarding the stone, but he does reveal which teachers have put spells on it to protect it. Hagrid also shows the trio a dragon egg that he won in a poker game, which later hatches into a baby dragon. They name the dragon Norbert and realize that they must find a way to get rid of him before he grows too big. Ron's older brother Charlie, who is studying dragons in Romania, agrees to help them by arranging for some friends to take Norbert away. The children meet Charlie's friends at the top of the tallest tower in the castle and successfully hand over the dragon. However, they are caught by Filch on their way back down from the tower. In the aftermath, Harry and Hermione receive detention, while Ron is banned from Quidditch for a while. Despite the consequences, they are relieved to have safely disposed of the dragon. As the school year draws to a close, the trio continues to study and prepare for exams, with Hermione's stress levels reaching an all-time high. Meanwhile, Harry continues to have strange dreams about dark corridors and a mysterious door. Chapter 15, The Forbidden Forest. In this chapter, Harry, Hermione, and Ron are taken to Professor McGonagall's office to be punished for their involvement in the dragon incident. McGonagall accuses them of making up the story to get Malfoy into trouble and deducts 50 points from Gryffindor for each of them. Harry worries that his house will lose 150 points and considers quitting the Quidditch team after falling from his pedestal as the star player. However, Wood convinces him to stay on the team. Despite resolving not to get involved in any more suspicious activities, Harry overhears Quirrell giving in to someone, likely Snape. He and his friends try to figure out what to do, but they cannot come up with a plan of action. Later, they are surprised to learn that the detention with Hagrid will be held in the Forbidden Forest, where they are tasked with investigating the mysterious harm to the unicorns. They split into 2 groups, with Harry and Hermione going with Hagrid and Neville and Malfoy with Hagrid's dog, Fang. While in the forest, Harry and Malfoy come across a cloaked figure drinking unicorn blood, and Malfoy and Fang run away, leaving Harry alone. The figure is revealed to be Voldemort, who is drinking the unicorn blood to sustain himself until he can obtain the Sorcerer's Stone. Harry is rescued by a centaur named Firenze and learns more about the dangers that lie ahead. Chapter 16, Through the Trapdoor. In this chapter, the year-end exams at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry are completed, but Harry remains anxious about the possibility of Voldemort's return. While staying at Hagrid's, Harry learns that Hagrid had let slip to Voldemort that Fluffy, the three-headed guard dog, can be lulled to sleep with music. Harry and his friends rush to tell Dumbledore, but they discover that he has been called away by the Ministry of Magic. Harry convinces Hermione and Ron that they must retrieve the Sorcerer's Stone that same night. Despite Neville's attempt to stop them, the trio heads out. When they reach Fluffy, Harry realizes that someone has already passed through the trapdoor, and they spot a harp by Fluffy's feet. Harry uses his flute to put Fluffy to sleep, allowing the trio to pass. They encounter a dangerous plant with twisting tendrils that capture Harry and Ron, but Hermione uses fire from her wand to fend off the plant. Next, they come across a locked door in a room filled with flying keys that they must catch to find the right one. Harry's Quidditch skills prove useful in catching the correct key, which unlocks the door. They then face a life-size game of chess in which Ron leads them through, but he must sacrifice himself to allow Harry and Hermione to proceed. Finally, Harry and Hermione come upon a series of potions and a logic puzzle. Hermione is able to solve the puzzle and determine which potion they need to drink to proceed. She goes back to help Ron, who is severely injured after his sacrifice in the chess game, while Harry goes ahead to confront the person who has already passed through the challenges to find the Sorcerer's Stone. Chapter 17: The Man with Two Faces. In this chapter, Harry and his friends confront Quirrell in the chamber where the Sorcerer's Stone is kept. Harry lies to Quirrell about what he sees in the mirror of Erised, but Voldemort soon discovers Harry's deceit. Voldemort then reveals himself to be a shapeshifter, possessing Quirrell's body, and attempts to persuade Harry to join him and give him the stone. Harry refuses, and a struggle ensues between him and Quirrell. When Harry regains consciousness, he finds out that he is in the hospital, and Dumbledore informs him that they destroyed the Sorcerer's Stone. Dumbledore also tells Harry that he was protected by his mother's love, which prevented Quirrell from touching him. At the end of Year Feast, Dumbledore awards Harry, Ron, and Hermione points for their bravery, which enables Gryffindor to win the House Cup. When the school grades arrive, Harry, Ron, and Hermione do well, with Hermione at the top of the class. The chapter ends with Harry heading home, eager to use magic on Dudley Dursley. In summary, this chapter depicts the final confrontation between Harry and Quirrell, which culminates in Harry's victory over Voldemort. The chapter also provides closure on the Sorcerer's Stone plotline and sets up future conflicts between Harry and Voldemort. Additionally, the chapter highlights the importance of bravery and friendship, which are rewarded by Dumbledore through the awarding of points at the end of Year Feast.